Hello, lovely people. Welcome to Ari Talks About Music. I'm Ari, and today I'll be reviewing the new Shame album, Cutthroat. Here we have the fourth album from the English rock band Shame, who are a band I've had quite a keen eye on over the last few years, particularly just with how much I absolutely loved their 2021 album, Drunk Tank Pink, being, I think, easily one of the absolute best and just one of the most fun and unique albums to come out of the recent post-punk revival. And I do think that Drunk Tank Pink is the album where they really did start to establish their own sound. But I did also find myself really enjoying their 2023 album Food for Worms, which overall is quite a big departure from the sound that they established on Drunk Tank Pink, but does see them still exploring new direction that I was still a very big fan of. And I do find that when a band can release two such different albums in a row, but both of them still be absolutely incredible, that definitely is testament to just how good the band is. I definitely find that to be one of the best ways to judge how good a band truly is, which is why I'm unfortunately finding myself being quite underwhelmed by their newest project, just with them seemingly not really exploring all that many new directions with their sound, and mostly just sticking to all of the typical formulas that they've used in the past, which while they have made them work on previous projects, you can only really do something a certain number of times before it does become quite boring, which unfortunately I think is mostly what's happening on this album. And especially just that the album almost in a way kind of lets you believe that it's going to be another fantastic Shame album with the opening track, with the title track that opens the album actually being an incredibly strong start. You still have that incredible punchy guitar riff and these very witty and somewhat nonsensical lyrics, which I have always appreciated the way that they use such funny lyrics, as I just feel like it makes me able to appreciate their music on another level, as I just feel like it adds another layer to which I can appreciate their music. And on the whole, this is just a fantastic, punchy, and dynamic Shame song that's just them doing what they do best for 3 straight minutes, which is why I unfortunately find the next track, Cowards Around, to be even more underwhelming than it is just as a song in its own right. I find that the very constant and even somewhat unstoppable feel of the loudness and intensity of this song just leaves it feeling pretty empty, given that there just aren't really all that many quiet moments to enjoy, giving it this complete lack of any sort of structure or diversity. And like the opening track, I do find this one to be quite unpredictable, but in a way that ends up making it feel more jarring than actually interesting. And to be honest, I think the only thing I really like all that much about this song just has to be, again, the lyrics, where you do have some pretty good social commentary, but again, with just that underlying silliness that's kind of always there in Shame's music. Quiet Life is a track that I think did have a lot of potential, but is just held back by many different factors. First and foremost, I just think that overall the mixing and the production could have been a lot better. But even more than that, I just find that the song as an experience altogether is just so underwhelming for a song that is so well written, just with how mediocre the performances feel on the whole. The outro of this track overall, I do actually quite like, definitely being the best part of the song, but it's just annoying that you have to get through the first part of it first in order to get to the good bit. But then luckily, Nothing Better does slightly take the album back into the kind of direction I would want Shame to be taking, with this track having, I think, some of the best and grooviest guitar riffs that they have on the album, as well as just that overall feel that I think Shame do really well of this sense of chaos, but it still feels like they have everything under control, especially just with how unpredictable the song can be, but this time in a way that I really like, just with the overall pacing and structure of the song being so compelling. And then you have Plaster, which again is just another one of those songs that frustrates me because it is very clearly really well written, but just doesn't quite live up to that. One of the first things I've always noticed about this song is just that very constant synth tone that's always there, that's exactly the kind of sound that they have on like the early Wonder Years albums, which is not exactly the kind of sound that I think you really want to be imitating. But overall, I do just find this to be a pretty generic song that doesn't even come close to showing what the band is actually capable of. Spartak, I think, has one of the absolute best vocal performances on the project, with there being this incredible sense of power and passion in the vocals, but again with that very serious tone with, of course, that underlying silliness that, like I said, I think is one of the most unique features of Shame's music. However, despite how great the vocals are on this track, I think that instrumentally, again, I think the performances are just so underwhelming and leave this song to be quite forgettable, I think. To and Fro feels like it was trying to go somewhere, and to be fair, I do think that the verses are really good on this song. However, by the time it gets to the chorus, I just find myself again feeling very underwhelmed by the whole experience. I think that the vocal effects are just a little bit unnecessary, and I even find myself not being all that interested by the writing of this song either. But I do have to say how much I like the bridge on this track as well, just being such a good and punchy moment that I really wish they could have done more with on the rest of the song. Then after that, going into the song Lampiao, this is actually one of my favourites. I think with this song in particular, just being a great mix of classic sounding Shame, but they're still starting to explore some new ideas that they haven't really done before. I really like the almost spoken word style of the vocals, which do give the song overall this sarcastic kind of tone, but in a way that doesn't take away from the storytelling that's at play as well as just the overall instrumental progression of this track also being really good, and a lot of the guitar guitar playing on this track I think is again some of the best on the album. And then After Party is another song that continue to show off what Shame do best. Just in the way you have a very quiet but still unique sounding verse that then goes into a really fun and energetic chorus. And even these like electronic tendencies that the song has I think are used incredibly well. Definitely much better than the attempt they had at it on Plaster. And as much as I do love all of the different parts of this song because of that, I think that they're maybe just a little bit too different, which does overall make the song just feel a little bit disjointed. Screwdriver, as chaotic as this track can be, I think actually does work really well, just with how dynamic it can be. And like I said before, something that Shame do really well is just having that sense of chaos, but still very clearly having everything under control. I think that this song should have maybe just been a little bit longer. I think that some of the much louder moments just aren't quite long enough, and they don't really leave you with all that much time to take in what's happening before they finish. But for a song that is as dynamic as this one, it's not that much of a problem. But just given how energetic the song as a whole is, it is quite fitting for each part to come and go as quickly as they do. I do see the vision that they had for Packshot being a much more slow burn of a song. However, I do find that this one overall just comes across as boring more than anything, especially given that it comes after such an energetic and punchy track before it. But I think that even then this track is just pretty boring, just with how even many of the louder moments that it's building tension for are just very underwhelming, especially just with how little time they often last. And then I do think that Axis of Evil overall is a reasonably good closer. I think that the electronic sounds are maybe just a little bit unnecessary, or at the very least could have been used differently, but I do overall like how the song progresses and just the way it's paced, given that at no point do I find myself feeling underwhelmed by this song, and it is just pretty interesting from start to finish. And so I do think it is quite unfortunate to see such a weak project come from Shame, who are a band that, like I've said, I've enjoyed many projects from in the past. But given that there are still a good number of songs on this album that I do really like, it doesn't leave me thinking that the band have completely fallen off altogether. And I think that there are still plenty of opportunities on this album for ideas that can be built upon on future projects, which is something I'm really hoping to see given how much potential many of the songs on this album had. But I think its main weakness is just how badly performed a lot of these songs are, despite the fact that so many of them are incredibly well written, and which is why I'll be giving this album a 5 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching this review. Please be sure to listen to this album yourself and tell me your thoughts below. Please leave a like if you liked the video, and please leave a dislike if you didn't like the video, and remember to stay hydrated.